Right now, I mean, there are thousands of people in Johannesburg who are, well, they are just incredibly hungry.
Oh, yeah. Very hungry.
Exactly. Because if you are part of the Baseline Family Church, you are right in the thick of a pretty grueling church-wide monthly fast. From the 1st to the 5th of May, you are voluntarily stepping away from food. And if you are tuning into this deep dive right now, you are hitting day 4.
Day 4 is rough. That is usually when it really hits you physically.
Oh, absolutely. Your blood sugar is low, you have probably got that late-stage brain fog, and naturally your instinct at this point is just survival mode. I always picture fasting as this, solo endurance sport.
Like running a marathon by yourself.
Right. You lock yourself in a quiet room, you put your head down, and you just sort of white-knuckle it until the clock runs out.
Yeah, and becomes a very isolating mental state. We tend to view self-denial as this completely closed loop.
Just you and your hunger.
Exactly. It is just you, your physical cravings, and your private attempt to connect with God. The general assumption is that to be spiritual in this moment, you just have to turn completely inward.
Which is exactly why I was so surprised by the source material we're looking at today. We are unpacking the daily devotional that the church uses for this fast, and day 4 completely flips the script.
It is a massive pivot.
It really is. The theme is just one word, which is lift. It takes that solo, isolated marathon of fasting, and it turns it into a collaborative team construction project.
Right.
The devotional argues that encouraging others right now isn't just a nice way to pass the time. It is essential, structural kingdom construction.
I love that phrase, kingdom construction, because it is highly deliberate. The text is laying down a blueprint for you. And the core rule of that blueprint for day 4 is that God never called us to build alone.
You need a crew.
Yeah, you really do. It forces you to redefine your actions. So lifting someone, whether that is through a prayer or extending faith or just showing up to offer support, it is not framed as a random act of kindness. It is literal load-bearing architecture.
Wow. Load-bearing architecture.
Yes, because every time you pull someone else up, you are strengthening the structural integrity of what is being built in them. And at the same time, you reinforce what is being built in yourself.
That adds so much gravity to just, sending a nice text message or giving a compliment. You aren't just making someone smile, you are literally laying bricks.
Laying eternal bricks, yeah. And to anchor this, the devotional brings in a thought from Craig Groeschel. He presents this really uncomfortable binary where he argues we have to be spiritual contributors, not just spiritual consumers.
That is a harsh mirror to look into, especially today.
Oh, completely. Because a consumer mindset approaches a church or a community and just asks, well, what am I getting out of this?
Is the music good? Is the message entertaining today?
Right. It is entirely passive. But a contributor mindset walks into the room wearing a tool belt. It looks around and asks, where is the structural weakness here, and what can I do to reinforce it?
I really like that visual. And the devotional pairs that seamlessly with John Maxwell's idea, right, that leadership is fundamentally just about lifting people to a higher level.
Exactly. It is not about scrambling to the top of the pyramid so everyone can see you. It is about being the foundational support that raises a whole structure upward.
Okay, but I have to push back a little here, or at least ask a logistical question, because I know how I operate on limited calories.
Hangry.
Oh, intensely hangry. When I am hungry, I get irritable. I have total tunnel vision for my next meal. Denying myself food usually makes me fiercely self-centered.
Which is a very normal human reaction.
Right.
Yeah.
So how does this work? The devotional quotes Gentes and Franklin here. How does he bridge the gap between being starved and being hyper-aware of other people's needs?
It is actually a brilliant psychological pivot. Franklin points out that the physical hunger you feel is meant to act as a trigger mechanism.
A trigger for empathy.
Yes. Think about how human empathy functions. When you are full and you are comfortable, it is incredibly easy to be oblivious to the lack around you. You just do not notice it.
Because you are fine.
Right. But when you introduce a physical deficit into your own body, when you actually feel that emptiness, it acts like an alarm bell. It hijacks your attention.
But usually that attention just goes toward finding a sandwich.
Exactly. But this framework trains you to redirect that heightened awareness outward instead.
So the hunger pang is quite literally a radar ping. The physical lack in my own stomach forces me to look around and notice the people in the room who are emotionally or spiritually starving.
Precisely. It takes that inward, self-centered focus of being hungry and weaponizes it for outward compassion.
Yeah.
You recognize a deficit in yourself, and that trains your eye to see the hidden deficits in others.
The people who are silently desperate for a lift.
Yes. It recontextualizes the physical discomfort. You aren't just suffering through a craving. Your brain is actively being trained to spot fragility.
That is fascinating. And if we accept this, if lifting is a literal construction project powered by the empathy of the fast, we have to look at where the devotional tells us to lay the very first bricks. And it points straight to our own homes.
Which is logically the best place to start. But honestly, it is usually the most difficult.
Oh, for sure. You take this grand, sweeping theological concept of kingdom construction, and you have to apply it while doing the dishes or in the car on the way to school.
It gets very real, very fast. The text addresses spouses directly. It says that when you lift your spouse with encouraging words instead of criticism, you are building lasting unity.
But let's be real about day 4 of a fast. When you are totally depleted, criticism is just the path of least resistance. It takes 0 calories to snap at someone.
It's a totally lazy reflex, yeah. But the text challenges the reader to consciously choose the heavy lifting of encouragement instead. And structurally, the difference between those two approaches is massive.
I think of it like architectural stress. Criticism is like putting the entire weight of a house on one single load-bearing wall. Every time you nitpick, you add pressure to that one isolated point until eventually you get deep structural cracks.
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it, and encouragement does the exact opposite.
Right. It distributes the weight. By affirming your partner, you are literally spreading the emotional load across a wider foundation so the structure can stand taller and weather heavier storms.
It is like reinforcing a wooden frame with solid steel. And the devotional extends that same structural reinforcement to children.
Yeah, it talks about building courage and identity into them.
Yes, by using affirmation, prayer, and your undivided presence. It specifically notes that presence is listed right alongside prayer. In our era of constant distraction, giving a child your focused, uninterrupted attention is a profound act of psychological reinforcement.
Because a lifted home becomes a strong home. And the devotional makes this beautiful leap. It says that strong home becomes a pillar in God's kingdom.
You are not just trying to survive the week without arguing. You are constructing a load-bearing pillar for something eternal.
I love that. But of course, we don't spend our whole lives in the living room. Once the house is stabilized, the mandate pushes us to take that structural integrity outward.
Out into the scaffolding of our daily lives, which usually means the workplace and the church.
Now, applying this at church makes intuitive sense to me, but the workplace, the modern office is basically the antithesis of a supportive environment. It is competitive, it is stressful, and it is all about the bottom line.
It can be very cutthroat.
Exactly. So how on earth does this concept of lifting function in a corporate setting?
Well, the devotional gets highly tactical here. It doesn't suggest you stand on your desk and preach a sermon. It details very specific behavioral shifts.
Like what?
Like offering a gentle word to someone who is buckling under pressure, or maintaining your integrity when everyone else around you is struggling with ethical compromise. It even talks about bringing peace to a coworker who is drowning in stress.
Let's unpack the mechanics of that, because saying bring peace sounds nice, but how does holding your integrity actually lift a coworker?
Think about the psychological pressure of a toxic or high-stress office. When deadlines are looming and the culture encourages cutting corners, the anxiety in the room is contagious. We have mirror neurons, so we literally absorb the panic of the people around us.
Right. If my boss is freaking out, suddenly I'm freaking out.
Exactly. But when you maintain your integrity, when you refuse to panic, refuse to gossip, and refuse to compromise, you act as an emotional anchor in that room.
You absorb the shock.
Yes. Witnessing someone hold their ethical ground psychologically relieves other people of the pressure to cave. Your stability literally lifts the atmospheric anxiety of the entire office.
Which perfectly explains my absolute favorite line from today's reading. It says, "Sometimes your greatest ministry happens without a microphone."
It is a phenomenal image. It completely democratizes the concept of spiritual impact.
It takes it right out of the pulpit and puts it next to the office coffee machine. It suggests that a coworker seeing patience in you during a midweek spreadsheet crisis carries immense spiritual weight.
But this requires us to stop compartmentalizing our lives.
Right. We can't view Sunday as the spiritual work and Monday through Friday as just secular survival.
Exactly. The text completely shatters that division. Every day, mundane interactions are the very materials for kingdom construction. And it brings that same standard back to the church environment, too.
Yeah, it highlights that simple acts matter.
Right. Every handshake, every smile, every time you support the person setting up the chairs, all of that adds strength to an eternal wall.
It grounds this in 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 11, which says, "Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up."
It is a relentless metaphor. Encouragement builds. Compassion builds.
But wait, I have to ask about the risk of burnout here. If we are constantly pouring our energy out, acting as the emotional anchor at work, carrying the load at home, serving at church,
It sounds totally exhausting.
it does, especially on day 4 of a fast when your physical reserves are already running on empty. How does the devotional reconcile the physical exhaustion of fasting with this demand to constantly lift everyone else?
This is where we have to examine the internal remodel. The text makes a crucial pivot to explain the spiritual physics of what happens to the builder.
Okay, so what happens to the lifter?
It lists these profound internal benefits. It argues that when you lift, you actually grow. Lifting breaks your selfishness and ultimately makes you more like Jesus.
But explain the economics of that to me. In our normal physical reality, if I give my energy away, I have less of it. If I give you my money, my bank account goes down. How does pouring out my limited energy make me stronger?
Because spiritual economics operate on an inverted principle. The text is referencing the dynamic of Galatians 6, verse 2, which says, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ."
So it is a paradox.
Completely. In this framework, hoarding your energy actually leads to stagnation. The act of lifting someone else is the very mechanism that generates spiritual capacity. You do not grow by conserving your strength. You grow by expending it on behalf of someone else.
Wow. So by pouring out, you get filled up.
Yeah.
And it breaks that isolation of the fast. You aren't just sitting in a room thinking about how hungry you are. You are actively engaged in someone else's survival.
And there is a stark contrast presented here regarding legacy. It notes that the things you build for yourself die with you, but the things you build in others live beyond you into eternity.
That forces you to really look at the lifespan of your efforts. A career milestone, a bank balance, personal comfort. I mean, those are temporary structures.
Exactly. But when you invest in the courage of your kid, or the peace of your coworker, or the faith of your spouse, you are constructing something that outlives your own biological timeline.
So let's bring this right down to the ground for you listening. If you are tracking with this fast from the 1st to the 5th of May, today is day 4. The devotional leaves you with a highly specific assignment.
It asks you to stop and consider one question. Who is God calling me to lift today?
And it ensures you have the materials to actually do it. The tool belt it provides is entirely accessible.
Right, you can lift someone with a message. You can lift them with patience when they are being unreasonable. You can lift them with generosity, with grace, or simply with your undivided presence.
These are everyday materials, but they build eternal structures. The reading actually closes with a prayer that sets the intention for the day.
It asks God for the eyes to see who needs lifting.
Yes, it asks for the strength to fortify the home, to encourage the spouse, to bless the children, to support the co-workers, and to build the church family. The core request is basically, teach me to lift others the way you have lifted me.
It shifts your entire posture. You are no longer merely enduring a fast. You are an active architect stepping onto a construction site.
You are actively looking for the structural weaknesses in the people around you, and you are stepping in to bear the weight. As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with something to process on your own.
Something to mull over.
Exactly. The material is absolutely uncompromising on the idea that what we build in others is what truly lasts.
Right.
So if every encouraging word, every moment of patience, and every act of support is a literal, eternal brick, what does the architectural skyline of your life look like right now, based purely on the conversations you have had over the last 24 hours?
That is a heavy question to leave them with.
It is. When you look back at the emails you have sent, the way you spoke to your family this morning, the tone you used in your last meeting, are you building towering skyscrapers of reinforcement for the people around you, or are you just leaving behind empty lots? Keep building, everyone. We will catch you on the next deep dive.